You had 3 kids with this man.
Yes.
He has an affair behind your back while you're home. He stays with this woman that he has an affair with. And then while he's staying with this woman, he's behind her back trying to get back with you?
Yeah.
Wow. Welcome to Loudr, the podcast that amplifies your voice. I'm Sean P., your host, and here we believe in giving everyone a platform to get louder. Whether it's your professional journey or personal stories, we encourage our guests to speak up on topics they couldn't voice before. Join us as we make waves, elevate conversations, and empower you to be heard. Let's get louder together. Welcome to another episode of Loudr. Today, I have a very special guest. I invited my wife onto the show. I want her to share her truth and her mindset with all of us and hopefully add some good perspective for any females out there who might need to get louder with their mindset and their intentions. And so, Mrs. Pachalski, welcome to Loudr.
Thank you.
So let's jump right into it. Give us some context, some background of where you come from and a little bit about yourself, and give us some perspective on your mindset here.
Okay, well, I was born and raised in California. I have 3 daughters that are 18 years old. I'm a hairstylist. I've been behind the chair for 14 years. I love what I do.
Nice.
And I am married to Sean Pachalski.
The highlight of your life,
Yeah.
I'm sure. So you have 3 daughters. Tell us a little bit about them.
Well, they are triplets. I have 2 identical girls, Paris and Chloe, and a fraternal, Julie.
Okay.
Yeah, they just graduated last year, and 2 of them are in cosmetology school, and the other one's going to college.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So triplets, did you want triplets?
No, I just wanted one baby. My ex-husband, the girl's dad, he had a daughter. So when I met him, I just figured we can add just one more to the mix and be done.
Okay.
I never thought 3. Maybe 2, but never 3.
So here you are now, married to another man. So you were married to their dad.
Yes.
Give us some insight into that chapter of your life, you having 3 daughters, married, your mindset. Where were you at that time?
Well, I was 21 when I met him, and I was 23 when I got married and 26 when I had my girls. So I was very young. And back then, we're talking the early 2000s, there was not a lot of, no social media. There was not a lot of awareness, so I was a very young 21-year-old, very selfish, and just had no business getting married at that time, really.
Okay.
So after we had the girls, when the girls were 3 years old, we separated. We got a divorce. I left, and
Why?
he had an affair, and I couldn't get past that.
So we had an affair. That's really a popular topic that happens amongst younger couples.
Yes.
So walk us through that. Maybe just kind of explain a little bit about what happened, where that took you, where it took your mindset, for anybody that might be listening, going through that at this time.
Well, honestly, I didn't really see this coming. It wasn't like we had the healthiest relationship, and throwing 3 babies at once didn't make it any better. But I just didn't really think that it would happen to me. Mm-hmm. So when I found out, I wasn't working. I was a stay-at-home mom, and it was terrifying. Really, it was either 2 choices: either I stayed and continued my lifestyle, or I left and struggled. And I chose to leave and struggle, which ultimately was like the best decision I ever made for myself and my kids. But at the time, it was obviously super scary. Yeah. And especially coming from a Hispanic family, you don't really do that. You kind of stay and work things out with your husband, because that's what Hispanic women traditionally do. But I obviously was not.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that a lot coming from that traditional background, and it's really unfortunate. It really is. It's not only adds to a lot of mental issues with females moving into this generation, which, clearly between male and female, the bond between marriage and commitment is really blurred now, and so with that being said, with it being okay, it's made it really difficult for females to trust men. you know? And then so with that, then you have men on the other side who are, you know, completely calloused or you know, upset with the way that they're treated from women. And so I feel like there's a whole generation that needs to kind of come back together to more of those traditional roots. And so I commend you for, you know, moving on and not staying in something that was toxic like that. So my question for you is like, how was your family? How was your mom? How was your dad? You know, you've got 3 kids. You don't have a whole lot of background in professionally, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sure a lot of people around you, your support system at that time, were not only scared for you, but you know, there's a really big unknown. You weren't just out there for yourself. You had to now care for these 3 daughters, which 3 at once is
a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. So, you know, walk us through that, through your mindset at that time. You know, what made you choose the career that you did? How'd you get going? And, you know, what was the fire behind all that?
Well, I when it happened, I was 29 years old, and I did not have a huge background in a career. I worked in the medical field, and I had my insurance license, and I was a makeup artist for a few years. I did a lot of weddings back then. So I took about a year off and just to gather myself together, because I did go through a very deep depression when we separated, and it was mostly because my kids were taking from me half the time. You know, it was just devastating. I was 100% devoted to my kids, and they were young, and I did not want them to leave.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I've noticed, and it's something I think is also really common is, you know, something bad will happen like that, and a female or a male will make the decision at that time because they're like, you know what, screw this. I could do this on my own. I'm not going to settle for this. And then they get thrown into the real world. And, you know, just as you mentioned, you realize, oh my gosh, I don't have my girls all the time. Oh my gosh, I don't have the money to do what I want to do. You know, all these things start to come to reality. At any given point, did you maybe think like, shit, maybe I should just work this out and get back with them?
No. I couldn't do it. And my mom really, she was pushing me to stay, to work things out because of the girls, because of my family. But I was 100% sure that that was not the route that I wanted to take, you know, and ultimately it was a blessing in disguise, because even if him and I would not have split at that time for an affair, it would have been for something else. We were like water and oil. And
so was it mutual? I have to ask that. Like, did he want to get back with you?
Oh yeah,
or?
He wanted to get back for years, even after when he stayed with his mistress for years. You know, just recently got married to her, but even when they were together for years, he always wanted to come back, and it was not something that I was interested in.
You had 3 kids with this man.
Yes.
He has an affair behind your back while you're home.
Yes.
He stays with this woman that he has an affair with.
Yes.
And then while he's staying with this woman, he's behind her back trying to get back with you?
Yeah.
Wow. That's really amazing. So, like, what would he do? Like, what?
Oh, just tell me, you know, he wanted to have a baby and just wanted to come back home, and he would stop everything that he had going on, this and that. But at that point, it was just, no, thank you. I'm not interested. I'm good.
Man, another baby. What if you had another 3?
No, no way.
Man, that's really interesting. I find that pretty interesting with men who do things like that. You know, like they never even stop the unhonesty. You know, they're still dishonest and playing the games, and yet, you know, here they are. Well, see,
back then I didn't know what a narcissist was, you know, until recently. Like now we're like, okay, I was like, oh, well, he's a hardcore narcissist, you know. So, you know, up until recently, like he's still that guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
very toxic, and just still emotionally crippled, emotionally not intelligent, and I feel for my girls mostly. I just feel for my girls that they don't have this strong, smart, intelligent, like emotionally intelligent man that they can count on.
Yeah.
He's a very irrational person still. So I just felt for my girls more than anything.
Well, I think that's great that you, as a strong woman, stood up for yourself, and hopefully, a lot of that rubbed off on them, and they saw that it is okay to say no and not accept certain things like that in their life. So just kind of going back to the sacrifices and that chapter in your life, I'm sure, you had a lot of doubters or haters that, while you were trying to figure out what you wanted to do.
Well, yeah, my dad always, even though he was self-employed, and he always told me and my brothers that, that's the only way to really survive is to be self-employed. I think out of being a protective dad, he wanted me to have a more stable job, 9 to 5. So when I decided to go back to school to be a hairstylist, it was more like, why don't you just go back to the medical field? Like, why would I do that? I had my mom, and she was kind of just doubtful, basically, like, well, what are you going to do about the girls? And I had my ex-husband, like, what are you doing going back to school? You're going to go out of style. Basically, I was too old. So it was, all that was just kind of like fire in my ass, and just like, all right.
I love it.
See where this goes.
So did you ever at any point want to quit?
No, I had no choice. I didn't want to quit. I was just getting started, really. I wanted to keep going.
I love that. I appreciate that. That's really cool. That's, for anyone listening, especially females, I think that's really empowering to understand that, at this time you were going through some really difficult times. I mean, it's, anyone who has kids and then is really kind of rerouted into being a single parent would understand that, it's being a parent within a marriage or a relationship is a lot easier than it is to be a single parent. Yeah. And so to take that on as a female as well, with everything that you're describing within the mix of people doubting you, like you said, you didn't have, not that I necessarily think that like a college degree does anything. You don't get like a set high paying job because of that. But, like for myself, if I had to fall back on something, I've got 19 years in a certain career, it would make it a little bit easier. But for you at that time, you were still young. Not only were you trying to find out who you were professionally or what you wanted to do, you had a whole lot of growing, it sounds like, to do personally, as going from a married female to having moms to now being a single mom, independent, searching for your path, your whole career. You're experiencing a lot of probably firsts that were really exciting for you. So and correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably feeling, really powerful at that moment.
Well, I feel like being powerful goes hand in hand with being independent. So I was in the search of being independent. So that would make me feel powerful, but I wasn't so much. So it wasn't until years later when I became independent that I felt the power of that independence. And honestly, for years, I think my ex dangled, child support in front of me for so long that it was a power that I kind of just took away from him. Mm-hmm. So in a sense that was the most empowering thing for me.
So it sounds like at that point you were really experiencing the more that you could control, the better it actually was for you. Yeah. You were removing a lot of control that other people had, not only just over you, but over your lifestyle, over your identity. And so having an opportunity to kind of reel that back in.
It took me years really just to even recreate myself. I didn't know who I was. Yeah. I was a single mom. The end, so from that, and there were so many things that happened between relationships and work and just building my career, losing my mom in the middle of all this, and just trying to raise my kids and hopefully that they were not going to be messed up from all this, so trying to protect them and be there with them and just absorb the most that I could with them, even though my time was split with them at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I know a little bit about your career path. And so through all this, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you've made it through the adversity and kind of the pinnacle of that for you? So you became a licensed hairstylist.
Yes.
And you eventually went on to compete in a international competition. And yeah, expand on that. Let us know.
So when I graduated cosmetology school, I landed running. I started working immediately. And really, it took me a long time. And that time, there was no Instagram. So trying to build your clientele and your page and to expose like all your work, it was really hard. We had Facebook, and you see all my old pictures. You can see my dirty bowls in the background and overly like contrasted photos, and everybody was making fun of me at the salon. Like, oh, you post all these pictures. I'm like, how else am I gonna let people know that I'm doing this? So I really just didn't even just listen and be like, all right, cool, let me do me. And little by little, like people started, like, oh, you're doing hair. Like that was good. You're getting better. And next thing I know, like fast forward 8 years later, I entered this contest that I've been watching literally for 8 years. And I win against 4 other countries. And that was the highlight of my career. And ever since then,
expand on that a little bit. Like, go deeper. I mean, that's got to be such an emotional time. I mean, like at that point, I could only imagine like you won that competition, and like it just a flood of emotions over like a long period of time. From you mentioned you lost your mom, and the fact that you stood on your own 2 feet to get there. Like I think people need to hear about that
for sure. Like if I put it all in a timeline, from being terrified to putting myself through school to really not having another option but to succeed in this. And then little by little, people doubting me. My ex really just hopefully, like I think he was hopeful that I would fail just so I wouldn't surpass him. Right. So that was a big one for me because I almost had something to prove. But this competition, was such a huge deal for me because, it was showing my mom, look, Mom, like you missed out on this, but this is for you. And
wow,
it's still a highlight of my career.
So you're now a published award-winning stylist.
Yes. And honestly, that's really what I wanted, why I wanted to win. It wasn't like, oh, I won. Like, no, like that's a title that nobody can ever take from me. I am an award-winning published hairstylist, and that's what I wanted.
Wow. So that's kind of like a probably like a fast forward edition of from having your kids to figuring out your career path. And so now at that moment, maybe explain a little bit about where you were and where your mindset was like within the dating pool. How was it dating men? Like, were you putting yourself out there, or were you more focused on your girls? Did you want to find somebody new? Walk us through that.
Well, this will be interesting because if I'm being truthful, I was always I'm a relationship kind of person. So between being flirty, all this and that, if you look at my past relationships, where I was at the moment, emotionally and mentally, that's who I dated, and I think as I grew every year, I just kept on just expanding my mind and really my emotional awareness. I just kept outgrowing these people. And, so just going back and if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have stayed single for at least 5 years for sure. I just would have not dated. I would have been by myself.
It seems like it wasn't until like semi-recent that people have such access to so many different options in terms of
dating apps.
Well, not just dating apps, but access to, you go on Instagram, and if you want to flood yourself with mindset posts and how to growth, podcasts and listening to other people's scenarios and situations and growing and learning from those, we have access to so much of that now. And
There's
before it's like you just had to date the wrong or right person and then like peel off that layer if it was wrong, and then learn and then go and then learn and then go.
It was trial and error for real. So it wasn't, it was trial and error. That's all it was. And now you read things and you're so much more aware and be like, oh my God, how did I miss this? How did I not notice this was happening? You know? So if I look back, I was probably a walking red flag in my early 20s too. You know, it was probably not the best to date either.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was the queen of gaslighting. So I'm a lot better now because now I'm owning my stuff. I'm owning it.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Well, wow. I mean, that's a lot. And I think that, I hope that it can resonate with some females that are listening and to understand that, you too can do it, but you've got to, dig in, and it's a lot of life is trial and error, right? So if you could take back any of those errors, would you?
No, absolutely not. I feel like every time that there was something devastating that happened to me or a heartbreak, that's when I grew the most. It just kind of, it's almost like, it's like a tornado, and then after it settles, it's like, all right, I have to pick everything up and put it back together and better. So I've become better and better through heartbreak, through loss. So you get the benefits of that now.
I definitely do. I really do. So, what would you share to some listeners? What would you share to, like, if you were sitting down with maybe one of your girls that have maybe starting to go through a similar scenario like you, and, explaining to somebody that life is tough, like what did you learn along the way? What did you learn along the way, and what's some knowledge that you can maybe drop on someone to maybe help them?
I think I would just say, just work on yourself. Number one, just work on yourself, make yourself happy. Don't depend on anybody for your happiness, because if they're gone, your happiness is gone, and then you start all over again. So if you're not happy just being with yourself, take yourself out to dinner, take yourself to the movies. And that was one of the first time I ever went to my therapist. My first therapist was that. Do everything that you ever did with him by yourself. So I started going to the movies by myself as therapy. Now it's like one of my favorite things to do. I know. So going to, watch a movie by yourself, all those things that you would connect with somebody else, do those by yourself. And honestly, it was the best thing I ever did. Wow. So I would really just say, just love on you, take you out, be with you, and just know that no matter what happens, you're happy with yourself, and somebody comes into your life, they add to your life, awesome. But if they take it away, you're still fine. You're solid.
Yeah.
That's what I will tell my girls.
I love that. I think that that's such great advice. I really do. So many people are afraid to be in their own mind, afraid to be by themselves. We have instant gratification, and, we've got instant highlight reels from everybody around us on social media. And, the art of being by yourself and really mentally working on your own mindset is
everything.
Like, it's gone.
But it's everything though. Like that's where you become you.
Yeah.
Who are you? When everything's nobody's around.
Yeah.
Like I'm a quiet person when I'm chill. You can see my stories, you can see my Instagram, and you're like, oh, she's all over the place. She's doing this, and they think they have an idea of my life, but I'm only picking and choosing what you see. There's so much more behind that I don't really need to share that, because I have that with you. I have that with my kids, the relationships that we have. So there's a lot that I just keep to myself, because that's sacred. It's precious to me, like the audience can see just certain things.
Yeah. So for anyone that wants to follow you, where can they find you?
I have 2 Instagram pages. Absolutely Hair. That's my hair page. That's an open page. And then I have my private Soul Dot, the one stylist. It's more of a private. I don't know. I go back and forth. Sometimes I open it up and it's like, and it's public for like about an hour, and it freaks me out. I'm like, nope. Yeah. Private. Nobody. Well,
we expose ourselves a lot to a lot of different communities, and like you said, it's important to keep some of your personal life sacred. On lock.
Yeah, for sure. I've had history of that trying to be used against me, and when I'm really not doing anything other than just living a life that,
right.
that I choose.
Yeah.
You know, like, don't judge me because I like loud music or I eat a lot of desserts. You know, like, let me be.
So let's jump into your current life now. If you here's a question for you with your husband right in front of you. If you had to rate your marriage on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being great, right now, where would you rate it?
I would say 5, but I'm going to say 4 because there's always room for improvement, you know? So I'll say a solid 4.
So what is it? What is it now that makes it a solid 4? Like what can you share that would help others?
Well, I think learning a lot from each other. You know, I think being with you has made me more aware of my red flags that I had, you know, and not necessarily who I was. I was just holding on to my past, you know. It's almost like that's just who I've been. That's who I am. So you pointing everything out to me and me like really taking accountability and just looking at myself, the way that I'm acting or like my reactions, it's kind of silly. So I think that, you know, so it has allowed me to put who I thought I was in the past basically on the side. Like, you're not that person anymore. I'm not that person. I really like her. Honestly, I'm kind of embarrassed of who she was at one point. So now I'm like, okay, so who am I as a 44-year-old grown-ass woman, you know, with a lot of experience? Well, I'm a lot softer than I thought I was, you know, and I'm just like really just hearing what you're saying versus just like, you know, like, no, I'm right. So I just figured out.
Did you have more of that mindset like in the past when you were younger? Like how did you take it? Like, you know, sometimes we have some super passionate discussions, and I'm saying that like in a nice way, you know, we love really hard. We get in arguments like really anybody hard. Else. Really hard. Yeah. And, you know, so what would be the difference between you now and you then?
Well, I think back then I was always just waiting for the other shoe to fall. You know, like, you're going to disappoint me anyway, so I'm just going to just wait. But I'm going to have a foot in, foot out. So when it does fall, I'm not going to be so hurt, you know? So I don't think being 100% into relationships that I was in the past helped me because I was always like, well, I can leave.
Yeah.
And here I'm like, I'm not leaving. So that shoe's not going to fall.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? Are we going to fix this? Am I going to listen? Am I actually going to like pay attention to what he's saying? So that way I'm not attacking. So I think that's been the biggest eye opener for me, has been to just let you lead and tell me and call me out on my shit, you know, and really take a look at myself, be like, why am I being like this? And I go back to like my childhood, the way I was raised with my mom, you know, like my mom's words. So because her mindset was just like, we're here, we're in a box. We don't leave this box, you know, and me was always like, well, I want to go. Yeah. I'm like, I want to go beyond this box.
Yeah.
So it goes back to my childhood.
Wow. So.
Oh, and let me add to why it's good.
Okay.
Okay. So not only am I listening, am I open, you know, I think being softer with each other, you know, like me being softer has maybe made you a little bit softer, you know, and just loving each other the way that we are, really, and a lot of humor. I think like you make me laugh so much that it's literally like one of my favorite things, you know, and really just being intimate with you, like, often has been sex.
Yeah.
So
that's so important.
Yeah. It's the core of the relationship, really.
So I wanted to make this a 2-part segment, right? So I want to end with this, and I really want people to chime in on this next one, because there's so much more to all of this dynamic, you know, and I thank you for sharing everything about yourself and really where you've come from. I love it, and it's so empowering for anyone listening, especially me. I can hear this story over and over and over again. You know, the moment I saw your video of you winning that competition, I hardly knew you, and I was crying, you know, so I'm super proud of you. I'll end it with this. If you had to rate our marriage within the first year on a scale of 1 to 5, what would you rate it?
Oh man, Probably a solid 1. Yeah. First year was tough, man. I didn't even think we were going to make it, honestly. But
we almost didn't. There's a lot of moving parts and dynamics within that and growth within that. And, one of them is having another female within your life, a baby mama. And on top of that, you mentioned narcissist at the beginning of this, and we'll end with that, having a narcissist baby mama that is just completely out to destroy you and make your man's life difficult, really adds some serious navigation to having a healthy marriage, having a healthy relationship. And I think that's something that a lot of females can relate with that are trying to date a man or are married to a man that has a baby mama. Some people are lucky and they've got somebody cool on the other end. Some people aren't.
So lucky.
Are we that lucky?
No, at all.
Yeah.
I had hopes for that, coming into this relationship with you. I remember you telling me, like, I don't want you to make your opinion on what I say about her. Like, I want you to make your own opinion when you meet her. So I went in like, dude, if there's something I know, it's females. Like, I can get along with any chick. I'll find something, we'll be friends. So I literally went in there thinking that her and I was going to be, the peacemaker, and we were going to be good. We were going to be friends maybe, but that didn't happen at all. So
it's been absolutely horrific. And so stay tuned for our next segment. Sol and I are going to get back into this. We're going to jump in a little bit more about why our marriage was so terrible within the first year, some of the trials that we went through, how we made it through that, how we changed our mindset, and really what has brought us to where we are now. And we're going to share with you that wild card and some other wild cards as well of having a baby mama that is on a scale of 1 to 10, a 20. 25. So stay tuned. We look forward to seeing you here on the next episode of Loudr. Thank you so much. That wraps up another empowering episode of Loudr with Sean P. I want to express my gratitude for joining the conversation. Remember, your voice matters, and together we're creating a symphony of impactful stories. If you enjoyed today's episode, I want to hear from you. Please subscribe, share, leave a review, and let's continue making some noise. Until next time, stay empowered and stay loud.